I'll introduce you. We'll be discussing Duane Anders's service to the country and the time he spent in the military and coming back. And so here's Duane talking about himself.
All right, it started out as a little boy back in Indiana. No, it was July 3rd, 1966. That was my birthday. And that's the day I got this letter from the U.S. government that says, "Greetings, your friends and neighbors would like to invite you in the defense of our nation." Now, for those who don't know it, that's a draft letter. You don't have a choice. So November 3rd, 1966, there was one of the worst snowstorms in Indiana. It seemed like it anyway. But anyway, that's the day I had to report for induction. Yeah, go ahead and take a seat. I had a 1966 brand new GTO. 389, 4 on the floor, 5th under the seat and all that. But I had to fight that through rain and all the snowdrifts in order to get to the bus station, to get bused to the induction center in Chicago, Illinois. Well, I made it. And from there I went on to, pass some physical, obviously. And then I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It was the first basic training cycle to go through that since the Korean War. Korea was active, or the Fort Campbell was active in the Korean War, but after that they had closed it down. But after the battery of tests, I'm sure everybody knows what the battery of tests are, the counselor came up to me and says, "Your scores are high enough that you can either go to drill sergeant school or to OCS, Officer Candidate School." It took me about 1/10 of a second to realize that that drill sergeant was out there doing the same thing I was doing as a private E-nothing, whereas a second lieutenant was sitting in his office with his feet up on the desk. Wasn't rocket scientist. So anyway, went through the training there, Fort Campbell. After that I went to Fort Ord, California for advanced individual training, infantry training. Then went on to Fort Benning, Georgia for OCS for a year. And after that, they sent me back to Fort Ord, California as a training officer. Normally, basic training companies have 2 officers, 1 captain as a commander and 1 lieutenant as a training officer. There were 5 of us there. I mean, they were pumping out lieutenants pretty fast. I mean, the life expectancy of a lieutenant over in Vietnam was very short. Anyway, I spent about 10 months there, and it was just waiting to get orders for Vietnam. Got orders TDY en route through Panama for the jungle warfare school, which is a worse experience than Vietnam ever was. Anyway, that was...
Why was that so bad?
It was hot. It was rainy. It has what you call black palms. We had to go through the jungle, which is a palm tree with spikes that long outside on the tree trunk, all the way up to the tree trunk. If you touch them, they would come out like a porcupine. And they were all over the place. And we had to do escape and evasion through these jungle with the black palms. So yeah, we didn't have those in Vietnam. Anyway, went through all the jungle school, went over to Vietnam, spent a year there with the 5th Battalion, 60th Infantry, 9th Infantry Division. So got that nice. And after that, well, I got all kinds of awards, which I don't particularly care about. A lot of stuff I didn't want to remember there. So I've shoved that back for 50 years. It was 50 years ago last month that I got my Purple Heart. July 1969. Anyway, uh, when I was getting ready to return, my battalion commander brought me in and persuaded me. He says, "Why don't you extend for a year to make captain?" That doesn't sound too bad, just 1 year and make captain. I was in the Army for 3 years, and I was already a first lieutenant with a year in grade. And he persuaded me to go ahead, and so I extended for 1 year. That was past my statutory obligation. And we got orders back to 1st Infantry Division in Fort Riley. So I made captain. And once again, it was approved. Or, no. The battalion commander there, well, I took over a failed company, HHC of the 1st Battalion, 2nd Infantry, mechanized. The company commander failed his CMMI inspection. He was a captain at that time and was not old enough to go into a bar. He was very young. Rocky McLean. Good guy, good guy. But anyway, so I took over the command, and about 4 months later, I passed the CMI. The battalion commander came up and says, "Why don't you go vol-in-def, voluntary indefinite?" That's a career pattern. It's not regular Army, but it's a reserve with the expectation of going it for 20 years. So I said, okay, I can do that. I had no other job waiting for me on the outside. So once again, July, 1st of July came, and the approval came that I was approved for volunteer. Once again, July 3rd, my birthday, I got orders back for Vietnam. Battalion commander about had a fit because I was knee deep in reforging, return of forces to Germany. With the first ID going back to Germany on their annual exercise over there. So now I'm needed. So once again, I went TDY en route to Fort Bragg language school. I was going to be an advisor for MACV, Military Advisor Command Vietnam. So that was my second tour over there, and that was rather uneventful. I was an advisor to the operations officer who had been there for like 20 years, the same spot, knew English as well as I did. I never used my Vietnamese. I can count to 10 most of the time with the Vietnamese, and that's about the extent of my Vietnamese language. So anyway, after a year, I was sent back to Fort Georgia, Fort Benning, Georgia, for the Army Advanced Course. That's where all captains go. After that, I was sent to the Fort Sheridan as a reserve component advisor. And after that, I spent several years there, and then I got orders for Germany. And that was probably the high point of my career. I loved that country over there. As you can see, I've had the plate for headquarters USAR. Oh, this is my 1st Division mug. They're really proud of it. Nothing on it except for a little scratching that you'd have to have a microscope to read it. Anyway, that was the 1st Infantry Division. Then their headquarters USAR. March '84 to October '86.
Where was the headquarters?
Headquarters USAR.
Where was it located?
Heidelberg.
Heidelberg.
Yeah. That was probably my best assignment in the Army. That's the one I'm most memorable.
Especially the castle there.
That castle, I've been there several times, but it's kind of in ruins. But there are other more spectacular castles around there. But we got into Volksmarching, and these some of the Oh, you don't give me my cane? Little hat pins that you get when you wear them or when you participate. That's Schwarzwald. That's the Black Forest.
Do you have a hat?
I used to, but I got
Put this in this.
yeah, I got it rained on, and it shrunk. So I don't know whatever happened to it. This is another. These are another medals that you get when you walk. You don't use a cane to walk. You just use it to carry the medals on. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, I went to Germany, right, been there, and then from there I had the choice of coming back to either Fort McPherson, Georgia, which is right outside of Atlanta, once again for the overseas deployment training, or came to Fort Lewis as the operation or the deputy director for Reserve Component Affairs. So I opted for Fort Lewis. I knew what the temperature was in Atlanta. I knew what the mean temperature was in Washington State or Western Washington, and that was, once again, it did not take rocket science to figure out where I wanted to go. So I spent my last tour here in I don't know what year it was, but anyway, I went before the 06 Colonel Board, accepted, with the provision that they had to find a slot for me. Well, the program that I was in allowed you to be in the service for 20 active years. I had 6 years of reserve component time, but once I came up to the 26 and a half years total time, 20 years federal service, I had to get out. Now, talk about discrimination. Yeah, no. We won't talk about that, but anyway. So anyway, I had to retire as a promotable lieutenant colonel. But while I was out here, it's one of the things that you do as a tourist or as a new person in the area is drive a ferry, go to one of these islands. And when I came onto Anderson Island at that time, it just reminded me of driving into a German woods, German forest. It's not like it is today. I don't know how long have you been out here?
1990.
Well, this was 86 when I first came out here. And it's not like it was now. You drive up there and going up the road, it just looked like you were entering a German forest. It was clean on the sides. It was wonderful. Anyway, that was my introduction to Anderson Island. Well, various sundry circumstances, I ended up here retiring, and I was building a house while I was still on active duty, even before I retired. So I retired out here, and I said, okay, what am I going to do now? Well, I was going to the Lutheran church up there, and the pastor up there was a retired lieutenant colonel also. And he says, well, you got the GI Bill. Why don't you go to seminary? Why not? So, GI Bill paid me for going to the seminary, and I got my master's in divinity in June of 93. So, and 93? Yeah. So I had no, that's when I started to school. I retired 1st of April, 93. I was expecting everybody to say, April Fool, you could stay. No, it didn't. So anyway, I went to, started seminary in September of 93. And the pastor in January says, I've had enough, I quit. If you want it, you got it. So I spent my last 3 years in seminary doing the schoolwork and being a pastor at the church. Well, I got a lot of help from my brother, who'd been a pastor for like 20 years prior to that. So he gave me all kinds of outlines and helps and tips and everything else. And then in 1996, my wife came on board. Her husband had died, asked me to perform the graveside service for her, and she started coming to the church. I knew her husband before I knew her because he had gone to the church while he was building this house. Anyway, looking back on it, it is God's provision that we both ended up here at the same time. And we fell in love, got married, and how we say, the rest is history. I retired out here. I keep busy and look around here. You know, the flowers and
beautiful
everything
garden.
else is just immaculate.
Yours.
Takes a lot of work.
But it's
So-
good exercise.
It is. It is. Very good exercise. Now, one of the questions was, what prompted you to join the service? Well, we've answered that. I was drafted. I didn't have a choice. Memorable events while on duty. And we were talking about that this morning. And other than calling in my own dust off over there, probably my tour in Germany was the most memorable experience of my career. Most ones I went on.
What is a dust off?
Oh, it's when you're wounded, you call in the helicopter to get you out of there.
Okay, because I don't know the.
Oh, you're Air Force? You know what dust off. What do they call
He's
it
Air
over there?
Force.
I was Air Force.
What do they call it when you're
what do they-
wounded and pick up a wounded?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because we had dust-off pilots. That's all they flew our medevac helicopters.
Okay.
But that's what a dust-off is. Yeah,
So how were you wounded?
booby trap,
Booby trap.
IED.
Is it a pressure or a string or what do they have for booby
I didn't
trap?
stick around to find out.
No, you
but-
didn't know. Okay.
It was probably a pressure device because my RTO is the one that tripped it. I had my hand up here on the telephone, and he was right behind me. He got one of those stretchy long telephones, PRC-10 radios. I was on the phone, and he was right behind me. He stepped on it, but it threw all the shrapnel up and down all my back and everything. Got his ankle, messed his ankle up quite a bit, but he was a hockey player from Minnesota. Yeah, but I think he came out all right on it. Yeah, but it was a bloody mess right at the time. But anyway, that was one of the more memorable things, calling in your own dust off to to get you out of there. And a fellow service member, the most colorful service member that I ever served with was Norman Schwarzkopf, Stormin' Norman. It was before he went to Desert Storm. That was Desert Storm. He was commander here at Fort Lewis for a while. Every Friday night we'd have a happy hour with him and his staff. And
Where did you have that?
at Fort Lewis Officers Club.
Okay.
And he was like a stand-up comedian there. He was better than Jay Leno ever was. But he would knock off jokes. He had really a lot of fun. But anyway, that's one of my most memorable people that I've had.
Were they politically correct, the jokes?
Yeah, well,
At the time,
at the time, yeah, this was back in the late 80s, so it wasn't anything politically correct then. Yeah. But he ended up being the chief of staff, Army chief of staff, so he had to be politically correct. Anything else to contribute? I don't know. It's probably the best thing that ever happened to me to get me out of Indiana. Indiana is hot. It's got the four seasons, but I always said that that's the best thing that ever happened to me with the Army draft. It got me out of
I thought
Indiana.
Cindy was the best thing that ever happened to you.
That was second best.
Oh, okay.
Because if I hadn't have been out of Indiana, I wouldn't have met her.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah, they go. Yeah. And we've gone back there, and she agrees. You know. But it's one of those things that you've got to let God into your life and work Him out. There were probably 4 different times in Vietnam that I shouldn't have walked out. That one time where I was carried out, you know, it was bad enough, but the potential for me being killed over there was very high. I tripped one other booby trap, that the only thing that went off was the blasting cap. I walked over a bunker where the guy popped up and killed my company commander. I was laying not that far apart from my RTO, calling in an airstrike with 500-pound bombs. That one piece of shrapnel, about that big, I could hear and it went right between the two of us.
Wow.
There's a couple other things in there that, yeah.
There's a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Yeah. And you're looking back, and you can see God's hand just kind of guiding me where He wanted me to go.
Mm-hmm.
He got me into the seminary so that I could get up to speed with her. I have not walked with the Lord my whole life, let's put it that way. And, but now, yeah, you've got to have faith in the one who made all this. I don't want to get politically incorrect, but yeah, I know Germany is your home country and homeland. I loved it over there. Yeah, I've got all kinds of memorabilia from Germany. And, oh, yeah, I guess. What else can we do?
Well, do you have a picture of you in your uniform or anything like that?
Yeah, she's going in there
She's
to get
getting
it
it.
now.
Okay.
It's got, now, the medals that are on this are not all awarded medals. There's a lot of medals of America. You can get almost any commemorative medal. I'll be back.
Sure.
For my father-in-law. First row, Silver Star, Legion of Merit. I got that for 26 and a half years in the Army. Got that. I don't know if you ever heard of Plain of Reeds, Vietnam. Oh, you want to get the rifle?
Where'd you get the Silver Star for?
Well, my company commander was killed. My forward observer was killed. His RTO was killed. And this is the rifle that came out of the bunker that
Killed
killed the company commander.
Wow.
I took over command and spent two days in there calling in artillery, gunships, just leveled the forest to get it. Okay, then this is the Bronze Star. We've got 3 oak leaf clusters with the Valor, with V, Purple Heart, Meritorious Service Medal. I've got 2 of those. Air Medal. 9th Division had what you call jitterbug. Cloverleaf, but we would sit on a chopper pad, and you'd have the scouts out looking for trouble, and when they'd find it, they would call back to the chopper pad, and you'd crank up the ships and fly out and be inserted. But you had to have 25 hours of airtime to earn one of those. So 25 hours in the helicopter is a lot of time. So I've got one of those. Army Commendation Medal with a V device and one oak leaf cluster. Army Achievement Medal and then Army Good Conduct Medal. I got that for 1 year being enlisted. I was a good boy. I didn't get any any trouble in that year. That's the Army Reserve Achievement Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, the Army Reserve Medal, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, Vietnamese Campaign. These are the ones that you usually wear on your right hand side.
Because
They're unit citations, yeah, or except for the Vietnam Campaign. Presidential Unit Medal, and these down here are just kind of service medal. National Defense, recognized service of different times. This is the 9th Infantry Division, the 1st Infantry Division, this is Military Advisory Command, Vietnam, 24th Infantry Division. That's the one I came back from 9th Division to the 24th, and then that converted to the 1st Infantry Division. 5th Army, that was Fort Sheridan. Or no, the 6th Army was Fort Ord. 5th Army is Fort Sheridan. Jungle Expert Patch, Military Advisory Command. Whoa. Infantry School. Benning School for Boys. Follow me. Yeah.
that's neat.
Yeah. So I put them both up there. I got getting paid as a lieutenant colonel, but I was selected for full bull, so I put it up there. And there's army brass that you wear on your green uniforms.
And the dog tags.
And dog tags, yeah. I probably should put a P-38 in here. You probably don't know what that is. It's a can opener. A little metal can opener. Yeah. Pull one of those. But anyway, yes, this Chi-Com SKS, like I said, got that 50 years ago last month. No. Never mind. I'm getting two different things mixed up. But yeah, that was when I got the Silver Star. Took command and I don't remember how many, what size of unit that was that we fought. But, we had the entire riverbank, forest, grove surrounded and just pounded the heck out of them with artillery and airstrikes, whatever we could call in.
And did it work?
We didn't find anybody live, anyway. They speculated it was an NVA unit, North Vietnamese Army, because it was very close to Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supposed to say that. You know, very close to Cambodia. Let's put it
Everybody knows
way.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Well, there it is in a nutshell.
Thank you for taking the time to be interviewed, and thank you for your service. You know,
You're welcome.
a lot of people, it takes a lot out of their life, and they give a
Well,
lot.
Yeah.